Today we are going to talk about what is Selenium, what are the different components of Selenium, what are the advantages and features of Selenium, so what are the limitations of Selenium, so how do we automate any web application using Selenium. So these are the topics that we are going to talk about. Okay, so this is not going to be a one-day session. It will take multiple sessions to cover all these topics. So let's talk about what is Selenium. So Selenium is basically a tool which is used for automating the web application. If you want to automate any web application, you can use Selenium. Okay. For example, if you want to automate google.com, or if you want to automate facebook.com or citibank.co.in, any kind of web application you can automate using Selenium. Okay. So when I say web application, web application is nothing but any application that is accessed through the browser. We call it as a web application. Any application that is accessed using browser, we call it as web application. Okay. So in simple, Selenium is a tool which can be used to automate web application. In Selenium, basically there are three varieties of components, or you can say three varieties of categories, you can say. Okay, one is Selenium IDE, second one is Selenium RC, and the third one is Selenium WebDriver. So using these three, using Selenium IDE or Selenium RC or Selenium WebDriver, using these three, you can able to automate the web application. You can choose any one of them to automate web application. Okay, but 95%, more than 95% of the people, or I can say more than, almost 99% of the people, they use Selenium WebDriver, and the remaining 1% or 2%, they use Selenium IDE. Okay, and Selenium RC is a 0%. 0%, because Selenium RC is the outdated tool. It is an outdated tool and no one uses Selenium RC. So you don't have to worry about Selenium RC. You don't have to learn about Selenium RC. It is completely outdated several years ago. Okay. So you can ignore this one. And this will be used hardly 1 to 2%. And Selenium WebDriver is being used by most of the percent. You can say more than 95% or close to 100%, you can say Selenium WebDriver. Okay. So what is Selenium IDE? So Selenium IDE is a tool which you can install into your computer. Selenium IDE you can install into your computer, and using which you can record the user actions on the web application. Okay, so you can open the browser, enter the URL. Okay, let's say google.com, and then in the search field you can enter any keyword and then click on the search button. All these manual actions can be recorded using the Selenium IDE, and you can play them back. So Selenium IDE is basically a record and playback tool. Okay, so yeah, so as I told, out of 100, maybe 1 or 2 people will be using that. Okay, so majority of the people using Selenium WebDriver. So in our session, we are going to learn about only Selenium WebDriver. How to use Selenium WebDriver to automate web applications is what we are going to cover in the upcoming sessions. Okay. So coming to the features and advantages of Selenium. When I say Selenium, remember it's Selenium WebDriver. The features and advantages of Selenium WebDriver. The Selenium is an open source tool. It's a free tool. You don't have to pay anything. You can go to the Selenium WebDriver, download it, use it directly. You don't have to pay anything. Okay, so as I mentioned, it's a free tool. And using Selenium, it supports multiple browsers. Selenium supports multiple browsers: Chrome, Firefox, Opera, Safari, Internet Explorer, even the Internet Explorer Edge, the Edge browser. It supports all the browsers. So what does it mean supporting multiple browsers? Supporting multiple browsers is nothing but whatever the Selenium scripts that you have created, whatever the Selenium code that you have created, okay, to test the web application, you can run that code against Chrome, Firefox, Opera, Safari, IE in all browsers. It is very important to test any application in all the browsers. Am I right?
Yeah.
So why do we need to test in all browsers? So I test the application only in Chrome and I don't test in remaining browsers. What is the problem?
So it will work on Chrome, but possibly not other browsers.
It is possible, right? So let's say I don't have a Chrome, okay, and I have only Safari, and I tried to book a movie ticket using the Safari browser. I opened some moviebooking.com and I'm trying to book a movie ticket using the Safari. So what if I couldn't able to book the movie ticket? What if it is not supporting the Safari browser, the application? Then people think that okay, this could be a fake site, or this site is not good. Okay, then they stop using that site.
Yeah, so company would lose money and stuff.
Company will lose money and they will lose trust. Okay, so once they lose the trust, it's almost done. So the company is almost ready to shut down. So company needs trust of the people, right? So these are small things that every company need to ensure that their application works in all the browsers. Just testing on the Chrome is not enough, or just testing on the Firefox is not enough. They need to make sure that okay, they have to test their application in all the available browsers in the industry. Okay, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, IE, these are the major browsers that are used by almost all the users. And the next one is supporting multiple operating system. When it comes to Selenium, you can install the Selenium in MacBook or in Windows or in Linux. Selenium can be installed in any operating system. It supports all the operating system. So I have a MacBook, I can use the Selenium. You have a Windows, you can use the Selenium. And someone has Linux, they also can use the Selenium. So it supports all the operating systems. And another one is, it is kind of more technical. It supports various frameworks. Okay, you can mold the Selenium to write your code using different frameworks. So you can use data driven with combination of Selenium. You can use hybrid framework with the combination of Selenium, and you can write your scripts. Now let's talk about some of the limitations of Selenium. Okay. So Selenium doesn't support automating mobile applications. Okay. So using Selenium, you can only test web applications. You can only automate web applications. Okay. You cannot automate mobile applications. So when I say mobile application, is nothing but any application that is installed in the mobile phone. Such kind of applications you can't automate. Okay. But any kind of web application you can automate using Selenium. And So the another important thing is Selenium doesn't support automating the desktop applications, and Selenium doesn't support automating image based elements. Okay, so for example, when you're trying to log in, sometimes it will ask a captcha code. Do you know about captcha code?
Yeah, when they like when you try to log in and they ask you like to select some images.
Correct. They'll ask you to retype the elements which are in the image. So in the image, there will be set of characters, and you have to retype those characters in a text field. Okay. So if there is any image component in the web application, and if you have to read that image values, that Selenium can't do it. So the next topic is about Selenium locators. One is ID, name, class name, tag name, link text, partial link text, XPath, CSS. Okay, and these locators are used to identify the elements on the web page. Okay, so if you want to identify any element on the web page, you have to use these locators. Okay, so for example, so you came to some relative came to your office. Some relative came to your office. So in the reception, they need to tell about you so that they can call to you or they can ask you to come down. So what they will tell about you? Your relative came to your office and your relative wants to meet you. So what your relative will tell to the receptionist?
Your name, maybe the department you work in.
Okay. So let's say if you say name, there will be 5 people came into the search.
Okay.
So then what other information you give?
Like maybe your department, your date of birth, your ID.
Okay. Yeah. So you give additional information so that he can able to find out the right person. Okay. So when you say name, okay, there are 5 people came. Okay. When you say employee ID, there is only one person came.
Yeah.
Okay. So either name or ID or date of birth or department. So these are the different attributes which can be used to identify a person.
Yes.
In a very similar way, in case if you want to find out any element on the web page, you have to use these attributes. Okay, we call it as locators. And using these attributes, you can find the element. And once you find the element, you can perform any action. Okay, you can click on that element, you can enter the text, you can do anything on that web element. Okay, I need to enter some value into the home value. Let's say I want to enter 1000. I want to enter 1000. So manually you can do it easily. Okay, when I ask you to enter 1000 in the home value, so you will directly open the mortgage calculator and you go to home value, you enter 1000. Okay, so if Selenium has to do the same thing, we need to tell the Selenium, okay, so enter 1000 in the home value text field. You need to tell the Selenium that way. For that, first Selenium has to identify the element. There are so many text fields. There are so many elements. In which element I need to enter the value 1000. Okay. So first we need to identify the web element, and then we can perform any action on to the web element. Okay. So I call all these items as web elements. These text fields, button, link, okay, this image, okay. So these labels, I call all these as a elements. And radio button, you can see drop down or select box. I call all these elements as web elements. Why should I call it as web elements? Can you tell me? Can you think about and tell me? Because these elements are displayed in the web browser.
Yeah.
So that is why we should call them as web elements. So if you want to find out any web element, you have to use the locators. Okay. So how can I find the locators of this particular web element? Okay. So if you want to find out the locators of any element, okay, you can mouse over to that element, okay, and then
Okay.
do right click and then inspect. Okay. The moment you inspect that element, okay, it will show the element information. It will show the
Oh,
element information. Okay. So this particular element, whatever the element that I have inspected, this particular element has a locator ID, also has a locator class name, also has a locator name, and also tag name. Okay, so this is called tag name. Input is the tag name. Anything that is started with less than, this is the less than symbol, right? Okay,
yeah.
we call it as tag name. Tag name. Okay, so this is a div because it is started with the less than symbol. Okay, so there are different locators are available for us. You can choose any of the locator, any one of the locator, and identify the element. Majorly, we go with the ID because employee ID cannot be duplicated. Student ID cannot be duplicated. So similarly, the web element ID also cannot be duplicated. It doesn't allow.
Sudhir, I have one question. So this home value, right,
Yeah.
that you inspected,
Hmm.
this single one has how many locators? Like all these are for just this home value? All these locators?
Yeah.
Like
All these.
ID
Yeah.
plus, oh, okay.
Yeah. So let me redo it. I'm going to the home value, okay, and I'm doing right click and then doing inspect. Okay, so whatever the locators, whatever is highlighted, right, all this information is belongs to this particular element.
Okay.
Okay, if you want to identify this element, if you want to find out this element, you have to use the available locators: ID, class, name, and tag name. Okay, so type is not a locator. Type is not a locator. You can't identify a element using the type. Okay, so here you can see, is there any type?
No.
No. So you can't identify a element using the type because to identify a element, Selenium has listed down certain things. You have to
So
use
these are
only
the
those
only,
things.
okay.
You can't identify an element using placeholder because there is no locator name called placeholder. You can't
Okay.
identify the element by using the size because there is no locator called size. Okay, so you have to identify the element whatever is available in the list. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's go to one more element, calculate. So I want to identify this element. So why should I identify this element? So if I don't identify, how can I do click? If I want to click on this calculate, First, I need to identify this element. Otherwise, there are so many buttons. If I just say
Yeah.
Selenium, go and click. Selenium, go and click. So there are links are there are buttons are there. Okay, there are radio buttons are there where it can go and click it. Okay, so that's the reason we need to identify the element first and tell the Selenium to click on that identified element, or tell the Selenium to perform some action on the identified element identified element. Okay, so let's say if I want to identify the calculate, go to the calculate, just do right click and then inspect. The moment you inspect, it will display the information that belongs to the calculate. Okay, so for this calculate web element, so this is the information available. We call it as a tag. We call this as a tag. Okay, the tag name is input, and it just has a name. Okay, so you can identify this element by using the name. And this particular element doesn't have ID or class name. Okay, class name is also there.
Class is there, yes.
So you can use either class or name. Okay. So most of the times we go with ID. If no ID, we go with the name, because we don't go with other locators majority of the time, because there is a chance that these locators are also be part of other elements. For example, what is the class name for calculate? Styled button.
Styled button, yeah.
The class name of this calculate button is styled button. Okay, so let me inspect this compare loan type. What is the class name of compare loan type element?
That's also styled button.
Same.
Yeah, so this button and this button sharing the same class name. If I try to identify the element by using the class name, okay, I get multiple elements. Instead of one element, I get multiple elements. Like if you want to identify the employee based on the date of birth or based on the department. Okay, so like how you get multiple employee, right? So similarly, if you try to identify an element using the class name, there could be possibility that multiple elements can have the same class name. But if you go with ID, so every element has a unique ID. And if you go with a name, 99% of the time, every element has a unique name. Okay, but if you go with the class name, there is a lot of probability that multiple elements can have the same class name. Okay, so you have to identify the element uniquely. And if you want to identify the element uniquely, you have to choose the right locator. Okay, remember that. And one last thing I want to tell. Okay, in the entire Selenium, there are only two concepts that you need to remember majorly. The entire Selenium. In fact, I can say any UI automation tool, any UI automation tool, any web automation tool works on two fundamentals. Okay, the first fundamental is how to find the element. The first fundamental is how to find the element. So you should know how to find the element. You can find the element by using one of its locator, and you have to find the element uniquely. If you use class name as a locator, you get multiple elements, and you tell the Selenium to click on it. Which one it will click? There are multiple elements. Which one it will click? It could confuse and it could fail. Okay, so that's the reason you need to identify the element uniquely. Okay, the second thing is, now I identified the element. I got the element. What should I do with that element? what should I do with that element? It depends. If it is a button, I click on that element. If it is a text field, I enter some value into the text field. If it is a link, I click. If it is a radio button, I click. If it is a drop down, I select. If it is a checkbox, I check or click. Okay. So once you find the element, you need to perform the action based on the element. Okay. Because as I told, if it is a button, you click on it. If it is a text, you enter some value into it. Okay. Based on the element, you need to choose the right action. Click or enter text like that, or select. Okay. So in the entire Selenium, these are the two major concepts. These are the two major fundamentals. If you know how to find the element, if you know how to perform the action, I can say 80% of the Selenium that you learned. The entire Selenium works on only these two fundamentals. Not only Selenium, any automation tool you take, it works on only these two fundamentals. Okay. So find the element and perform the action. Okay. Find the loan term, enter the text. Find the start date, select the value. Find the PMI text field, enter the value. Find the calculate button and click on it. Okay. Find the down payment and click on the drop down. So that's how it works. Okay. And if you want to find out the element, you have to choose the available locators. You can't choose whatever you want. Okay. So there are list of locators given by Selenium to identify the elements. Okay.